Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words and become much more articulate. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about, is snitching ever fine? There's this quote that goes around that says, snitches get stitches. And it's permeated in gang culture. If you ever go to the hood and let's say you're presented a situation where you live in the hood, you're in a gang, and you and your boys, let's say they commit a crime, and one day you're in the police station, you have two options. You could either snitch and you can leave, right? You could go back to your family, or you don't snitch and you go to prison. Which one do you think makes more sense? For most logical people out there, it's go ahead, snitch and go back to your family. But in the gang culture, if you snitch on a peer to avoid going to prison, you will get hurt bad. That's where the stitches come in. And the thing is that snitches get stitches. It's such a strong quote that permeates gang culture that it went from gang culture to the entire culture, where there are a lot of these guys in the suburbs, they're far from the hood, that are like, hey, do you know snitches get stitches? And they repeat that to their parents. The parents think like that at work. Whenever someone does something unethical, they're like, I shouldn't tell on them. So what started as a quote that was meant to monitor low-income places, such as gang-infested areas, has now permeated culture. Is this right? Is it always wrong to snitch? I don't think so. I believe in a thing called ethical snitching. And what this means is that with ethical snitching, the whole wins, not only you. So I'll give you an example. Imagine that there's a package thief in your neighborhood, and this package thief steals from everyone but you. And one day you find out who the package thief is. Are you going to snitch on them? With my philosophy of ethical snitching, the answer is yes, because it impacts the whole. The entire community becomes safer, which allows you to live in a safe place as well. So this is a situation where it's not rocket science. Go ahead and snitch on this person. I believe this overall makes sense to the common person. Here's another situation where I could see a good case being made for snitching. In corporations. See, in corporations, there's a lot of people that are going to do some bad behavior towards you because they know something. They know that there is no threat of violence. If you even threaten someone with violence, then you will get fired. If you actually hit them, then you're going to get fired and blackballed from the industry maybe. So a lot of these people in the corporations, they know that no one's going to put hands on them. So the more that they rise in power, the more bad their behavior becomes. And once their behavior becomes really bad, what are you going to do? Are you going to tolerate the disrespect? Or are you going to snitch on them? See, here's a quote that I have. I believe what snitching is in the corporate world is what putting your hands on someone is on in the streets. It's the same exact thing. So even though you can't put your hands on someone who's disrespecting you in the corporate world, you could still snitch on them, and you will be shocked by how effective this works. A couple of years back, there was this one guy, his name was Mike. He was on the verge of becoming a managerial director. If he became a managerial director, he would have had so much power within the company. He was just a few weeks away from reaching that coveted position until there were murmurings of him being a racist. Different people were coming out of the woodworks saying that this guy does not deserve such a prestigious role because he made racist remarks at them. A lot of these guys came with receipts. And right before Mike was about to become the managerial director, he was blackballed. This was the situation where snitching led to something good. Because if this guy hypothetically got to that position, he would have had so much freaking power that he would have silenced any of his critics. So thank God he got snitched on before he reached that position. And you could even do that with a mean boss. Because the reason a lot of people are scared to snitch in the corporate world is because they think their boss is being weighed for the same metrics that they are. That is not true. You are being weighed for how well you could do the job, while your boss is being weighed for how well he can manage a team. So let's say this guy is super disrespectful to you, is yelling at you and demeaning you in public meetings. He's not running a team well. He's creating friction. So if you pull him to the side and say, look, I will snitch on you. I will tell your boss about this. And if your boss does nothing about it, I'll tell his boss. Obviously, you want to, soften up the decorum just a little bit. You'll be shocked by your manager and how he immediately gets in line. Because here's a little secret that a lot of corporations don't want you to know. The higher up that you go in the food chain, the more that you go from manager to senior manager, the more that the senior manager often takes the employee's side, not the employer's. They take the worker's side, not the manager's. And these managers that are being disrespectful, they understand this. So when you threaten to snitch on them, there's this fear that permeates their face. They're like, okay, my bad, homie. I don't want any smoke. It's a last case situation. You don't want to be snitching on everyone. But when it really comes to it, you need to be able to snitch, just like in the streets. You don't just want to fight everyone. But if it really comes to it, homie, I have hands. So I think snitching is fine. But let me talk about a situation where snitching is not fine. This is subjective. You really need to figure out who you are loyal to. And I'll give you a thought experiment right now. Let's say there's a couple, James and Mary, and you're best friend with James. Mary, you just met through James. And one day, you find out that Mary is cheating on James. What are you going to do? If you're like most people, you will say two things. You will say, well, number one, I am against cheating. And number two, I am James's friend, not Mary's. So the two variables that you are loyal to in this example is you are loyal to the principle of never condoning cheating, and you are loyal to James. This is scenario number one. Now imagine for scenario number two, I flip it. James is cheating on Mary. What do you do now? At this point, you're thinking about it. You're like, wait a minute. I am really against cheating in relationships, but then again, James is my friend. Which of these two variables are you more loyal to? That will determine whether or not you snitch in this scenario. Let's say you don't really care about people cheating in relationships as long as it's not your relationship. You're loyal to this principle, but not that loyal. But James, he's had your back since you were a child. So in this scenario, you would ignore James's cheating and you will be loyal to him. But let's flip it. Let's say in your last relationship, your partner cheated on you, and no one told you about it. So you are very loyal to this principle. You're actually more loyal to this principle than you are to James. Now what are you going to do? This is when a little craftiness comes up. Maybe you do tell Mary that James is cheating, but you do it in a slick way where you create an anonymous social media and you mail her the receipts. The thing is, it is fine to snitch, and it's also bad to snitch, but you really got to weigh down the circumstances. I believe it's okay to snitch whenever you're in a corporation-like setting or whatever ethical snitching is involved, sort of like a package thief stealing from everyone but you. These are scenarios where it's okay to snitch. Now, scenarios where it's not okay, it typically happens in gang culture, right? And it also happens when you are more loyal to the person rather than the principle. In situations like that, you're like, I'm never going to throw the Jameses of my life under the bus. So that is how snitching works in a nutshell. If you enjoyed today's talk and you want to learn more about social skills, be sure to check out the ArmaniTalks free daily newsletter. Within this newsletter, I drop daily insights on public speaking, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and much more. join the tribe of thousands of people by going on ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter and sign up today. Thank you very much for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you next time.